Whether you have a King Seeley era or an Emerson era Classic Craftsman Drill Press, you need to know how to install and remove the feed return spring. That's what this video is all about. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. We got a few things to cover, so let's get to it. Craftsman drill presses manufactured between 1946 and 1984 were produced by two companies, King Seeley and Emerson. The double-looped both end spring is for Emerson drill presses, and the double-loop one end and dog leg end on the other end is for the King Seeley drill presses. To install or remove these springs, you're going to need a couple of basic tools: a 1/4-inch punch, a hammer, a spike, and a pair of pliers. So first we're going to remove an Emerson era feed return spring. Emerson's would be found in like that Gen 4, this Gen 2, or the 150 series Emerson Gen 1s, like this one here. Notice there's no knob on the outside. So that means that all of these have the springs captured on the inside of the drill press. So we're going to be working with a Gen 2 Emerson, but it's the same whether you've got a 150, a Gen 2, or a Gen 3, or a Gen 4. And notice that pin that's on the hub right there. So the first thing we're going to do, currently the spindle quill assembly is under tension. So we're just going to pull out on the hub and turn it clockwise. And this is going to relieve the tension that's on the spring. And you don't have to worry about the quill falling out as long as you have a feed stop collar on your feed stop. And once we've got the tension out, the quill should be hanging down completely. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be removing the pin. This is what holds the hub and pinion and spring all together. And this pin has a splined end and then an end that does not have splines. And we're driving it out so that the splined end is coming out first. Here you can see the splined end. We don't want to drive the splines all the way through, so you can closely examine the pin while it's still in the hub, and you'll see the splines on one side or the other, and you just want to drive it out from the other side. So once we've removed the pin, the hub should come off of the pinion. The pinion may come out with it, and if that does, no big deal. So if we pull the pinion out, the quill will still stay in the drill press because we have a feed stop collar on the feed stop rod. And on that pinion, there is a fiber washer. So you can see the spring is still captured inside the drill press. So now we're going to remove the feed stop collar. And now if we loosen the quill lock, the quill will come right out of the drill press. So to get the spring out, it's captured on a roll pin inside the head casting. All you've got to do is push up on that double loop and off of the roll pin inside. And to install a feed return spring with the double loops on both ends in an Emerson era drill press, all we're going to do is put the spring back inside the head and hook it on that roll pin that's inside the head casting. And if you need to, you can get a flashlight and look up under there to see it, but it's pretty simple. Now, again, we've got splined ends on the pin, so we want to look at the pinion and the hub and see which end had splined ends marked on those openings. Typically on the hub, the opening that aligns with one of the feed stop or the feed handle rods is the splined end. Don't forget to put the fiber washer back on, and then we're just going to reinsert this into the drill press. So that's the splined end that I just pointed at. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it in so that we're looking at the splined end. Now what you're going to need is a spike of some sort. This is just a small pointed tool. And I'm reaching inside and pushing on the spring towards the hub just so I can barely see that loop. And then once I can see that loop, I can run the spike through it. Now we've got the spring captured in the hub. Now we're going to use a 1/4 inch punch, and we're going to come in from the opposite side, and we're just going to follow that spike as we work it out. Make sure that we grab that spring. And once we've got it through the spring and the hub and the pinion, we should be able to see it there. And we're still captured. We're good to go. So now all we're going to do is we're going to take the pin and run it back through opposite the punch with the splined ends facing up. And once we've got it down in there as far as we can get it by hand, we can then just finish it off with the 1/4 inch punch and a hammer to get it flush. So now the spring is captured inside the hub again. So we're going to put the quill back in. We want to make sure that the gear rack is facing the back of the drill press. And then just line up the feed stop rod with the opening in the head casting. Pull out on the hub a little bit, and then you may have to reach up and manipulate the spindle pulley assembly. There are splines that get lined up into that assembly. But now we've got the quill captured on the pinion, and then we can install the feed stop collar on the feed stop rod. And once we have this in place, the quill will not come out of the drill press. The pinion's holding it in right now, and this collar will hold it in as well. And that's important because we're going to be pulling the pinion out of the drill press somewhat to tension the spring. So to tension the spring, all we've got to do is pull out and counterclockwise turn. And as we do that, it'll start to retract the quill like so. So you don't need this thing super tight. It just needs to be tight enough to retain the quill and have a little bit of force when it's returning. And then I like to line up one of the feed rods so that they're 90 degrees to the head, like so. And that's how you install it and tension it. So for the King Seeley era drill presses, you've got that knob that's on the side of the drill press head. Sometimes it's referred to as the hand knob. Sometimes it's referred to as the tension knob. But either way, it's what allows you to tension the spring in the drill press. So all we're going to do is, it has a lock screw that sits directly under it. And we're going to lock down the quill. And then we're going to have a good handle on the knob, on the hand knob, and then loosen that lock screw. And then slowly let the tension out of the knob. Once the tension is out, we can go ahead and remove that lock screw and the knob. And on the back side of the knob, it's got two prongs that engage with the dog leg. There's your lock screw, and there's the knob with the two prongs. Notice how the dog leg, or the dog point of that screw, rides inside that channel on the knob. So we're going to go ahead and loosen the quill lock and let the quill down. Now the quill is still captured inside the drill press by the pinion and by the collar. So to get the pinion out, you've got another lock screw under it that you need to loosen. And that lock screw has a dog point as well and a fiber washer. and that's a 1/2 inch screw. Then you should be able to pull the hub pinion spring assembly straight out, and you can see where the dog point rides inside that channel. Spring is captured inside the pinion. So to get the spring out of the pinion, we're going to put the pinion in a vise, and we're just going to, again, look at that pin and see which end has splines, and you want to drive the smooth side, not the pinion spline side. See how the splines are coming out the bottom? That's the direction we want it to do it. Out, and then the hub should come off of the pinion, but you don't have to remove it. Notice the splines. And then inside the pinion is the spring. So there's your dog leg, and it just engages with the prongs on the tension knob like so. So to install this, it's pretty much opposite what we just did. We're going to go ahead and put the hub back on the pinion and make sure you have the splined side facing up. And then we're going to insert the spring. Then we're going to line up that hole with this loop on the spring, and then use the pin with the spline side facing up and just drive it back through until it's flush. And I didn't have my vise very tight here. Simple. Now we go back over to the drill press. We didn't even take the quill out. So we're just going to go ahead and insert the hub pinion into the drill press. Make sure you've got your fiber washer on the lock screw. Go ahead and insert that into the hole directly under the hub and pinion. We're going to tighten it down. Now you're going to need to back the hub out about 1/8 of an inch. To get it to ride, to get that dog point to ride in the channel that it needs to ride in. And then you can tighten it down with a 1/2 inch wrench. And you should be good to go. Now on the other side, we've got the 2 prongs, and we're going to look in there and see where the dog leg on the spring is, and then line those 2 prongs up with it. And then we'll go ahead and get the lock screw started. Just turn it a couple times. We're not going to be tightening it down yet. So now we loosen the quill lock, and all we're going to do is turn this knob counterclockwise. You got to keep a good grip on it because it's going to want to slide out of your hands. It's also going to be pushing away from the drill press head because as the spring goes under tension, it's actually expanding. Once we've got enough tension that it's completely lifted up the quill and locked it in place, we can lock down the tension knob with that screw and then check your tension. Too easy. So I hope this answers any questions you might have on how to install the springs or tension the springs. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.